Hey, everybody, this is Dr. William Clark here for Leadership Conversations. This is the show where we talk about leadership according to the world that matters to you. I wanted to take a moment and talk about something that's currently happening during the time of this recording, and that is the government shutdown in the United States of America. You know, the politics and the reasons for the shutdown vary depending on your perspective and your political view. And in this show, we take no particular political stance whatsoever, and I'm not going to change that during this particular podcast. But I did want to share something with you to kind of reiterate a point that I've been kind of driving home with many of you as we've engaged over the course of our time together doing this podcast, and that is the importance of sustaining your nonprofit organization. And of course, this is for nonprofit leaders. Now, if you run a nonprofit or a working one, you understand kind of the cycles of funding and what goes on with that and what's associated with that. And certainly, this is not necessarily meant to kind of regurgitate that type of information. However, I do want to just drive home the point of the importance of why. Sustaining your nonprofit is vital. Now, there are a couple of thoughts I want to share with you. I think I put together an article that was written several years back about authentic leadership and the importance of having authentic leadership within the nonprofit space. And I think the specific article is cultivating an authentic leader who champions nonprofit sustainability. And there are a couple of points that I address here, and I want to share with you just what I was thinking as I put the framework of this article together. Um, so, an ideally, an authentic leader is someone who has a set of core values that drives them, and this person allows their core values to drive them in all that they do, and it is essential to their work. And I talk about leadership, of course, which we define here in the show as the ability to influence. But what I'm trying to articulate in this particular article is the importance of the development of authentic leaders within the ranks of our nonprofits so that they take a liking to, and if not more, a mastery of the strategies around sustainability. Here's the reason why. This government shutdown has yet to create stories, as of this recording, of how it impacts nonprofits, but in much more substantial times where government is shut down and funding that flows from the government to nonprofits can be very impactful. There are some things that can happen to a nonprofit as a result of government shutdowns, budget breakdowns, both on a federal, state, city level. And here's what can happen. Nonprofits will be struggling with reduced payments. Reduced payments is a result of the funding entity unable or unwilling to fund the nonprofit at levels that the nonprofit is used to. So the government may say, well, 2 years ago we funded you at $100, right? Well, we're now going to move that needle down to $80, and that hurts a nonprofit because that revenue stream is no longer what it was. And typically, nonprofits continue to take on new staff, new expenses to cover programmatic expectations. And it becomes difficult for many nonprofit leaders to cut ties with staff that they've brought on board. And so dealing with reduced payments is a challenge for many nonprofits. Another impact on nonprofits, especially during a shutdown, would be delays in payments. With the news hitting at the time of this recording that the IRS may be delaying tax return payments. If this shutdown was more substantial and more impactful towards nonprofits, this could result in delayed payments, especially in reimbursement contracts, where many nonprofits are obligated to. And reimbursement contracts pretty much work as it sounds. So a nonprofit performs a service. It carries a number of expenses associated with that service, and then it submits a bill to the funder, in this case, the government. in exchange for repayment. And repayment can take, generally speaking, in good times, 60 to 90 days, depending on the policy of the funder. Sometimes it could take longer as normal policy. But if a government shutdown is occurring, that normal period of time where payments are paid out, it could go from a normal 60 days to now abnormal 120 days. And ultimately, whatever the normal is, you can add more time to that because of the delay. This can significantly impact your organization. Nonprofits, as a result, have to now plan for delayed payments as a result, and it will limit the growth that they project for their nonprofits. Now, these three things, reduced payments, delayed payments, and planning for delayed payments, has a ripple effect on the business operation of a nonprofit. Now there was a survey taken of Connecticut nonprofits several years ago when the state budget was just causing a ruckus around the state, and many nonprofits had to adjust. And there are percentages that I'll put on the screen here, where people responded to the surveys to say, "Hey, if I have to take reduced payments." A certain percentage said they would have to lay off staff, and these things happen. This was not too long ago, actually a year and a half ago. Some would have to lay off staff. Some would have to reduce services and programs provided to the communities where they're serving. Some would have to eliminate programs. Some would have to reduce service hours. Some would have to stop accepting new clients. Some would have to access existing emergency cash reserves if they have any, and some would have to pursue a line of credit, which for some nonprofits would be difficult to obtain. So, at the end of the day, as a nonprofit leader, it is in our best interest as a nonprofit community to diversify our revenue sources as much as we can, because the unknown factors of the market, the unknown factors of our funders, the unknown factors of the government can have a devastating effect on the nonprofits where we work, right? And I think it goes without saying, but we should say it. Our customers are the ones that are hurting the most as a result of these things that happen. And the vulnerable persons that you serve, that you minister to if you're a church, the vulnerable persons that look to you and your organization for services, for support, for resources, they are the ones that lose out. And depending on the cash position, depending on the resource level you have or don't have, you may end up losing customers to a competitor who may have resources in place, who can take on customers in spite of the shutdown, in spite of lack of resources flowing or the delay of resources flowing. And so this not only becomes just a day-to-day operational threat, this becomes a long-term threat to your nonprofit organization. If, in fact, you lose customers long-term, they become acclimated to another provider, and they decide to stay there. So for you, it's vital to begin the process of thinking about sustainability if you have not done so already. It's important to start that journey with your organization, with your board, and to begin that conversation of what it looks like for us to be sustainable. What does it look like for us to diversify our resources? What do we got to do to ensure our doors stay open, our staff remains paid, and our customers know that they can come to us for resources? So I hope you find this helpful. On the screen, you'll see a copy of my book, Sustainable: How to Sustain a Nonprofit and Faith-Based Organization. And I talk about the organizational philosophy that you should implement within your organization to ensure that becoming sustainable is normalized within your organization, and that everybody begins to talk that language and look at sustainable as a normal part of the effort of the work that is being done at your nonprofit. So I hope you find this helpful. Share this podcast on Facebook, Instagram, TV, Twitter, and YouTube. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this podcast utilizing your favorite podcasting platform. This is Dr. William Clark for Leadership Conversations, and we'll see you in the next show. Peace.